This podcast is for SEO professionals, and each week, with the help of our wonderful guests, we discuss the important stuff that actually affects our careers and progression, but sadly often doesn't get talked about. You know, the invaluable soft and interpersonal skills that are often taken for granted, such as the skills we need for listening, time management, communication, and more. We also talk about the big issues that affect us and our careers, such as burnout, imposter syndrome, self-belief, saying no, plus other big issues and obstacles. With this podcast, we want to share knowledge on topics that unlock our listeners' true potential and enhance not only their careers, but all parts of their lives. So, are you ready to prioritize your own personal growth and career development? Then let's crack on with this week's episode. Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the SEO Mindset podcast, where your hosts are myself, Sarah McDowell, and Tazmin Suleman, where new episodes go out every single Thursday. Now, this week's episode is a corker. It's a cracking episode. Rejection. We talk about rejection, and it's unavoidable. Yeah, there's going to be situations, especially if you're pushing yourself, you're putting yourself out there. Rejection is going to happen. So me and Tazmin have a raw conversation about this. We talk about why it happens, the situations, and more importantly, maybe what we do is discuss what you do with that rejection. So how you can make sure that rejection doesn't end up being a blocker, that rejection doesn't stop you from going out there and doing what you should be doing. Now, before we get into this episode, just a reminder of how you can support the podcast. We are on Buy Me a Coffee, where you can give us a one-off donation. We'll put a link in the show notes so you can do that. And you can also follow us on social media. We're practically on all the platforms now. LinkedIn, Instagram. I can't be bothered to list them all. But literally, just next time you're on a social media platform, whack in the SEO Mindset podcast and we'll come up. So yeah, connect with us, say hi, talk to us, because that would be fabulous. Right, without further ado, let's crack on with this week's episode. Tazmin, hello.
Hello, Sarah.
That was very official.
Hello, Sarah.
I feel a little bit silly.
Why?
No, like good, not like silly bad. I just feel in a silly mood.
Oh, well, seeing you put me in this with reference to where we are at Sarah's studio, and she's positioned the mic and the light and the camera and everything. So I'm not feeling silly. I'm feeling very stiff. I'm like, cannot move.
You can move.
Okay, all right then, thank you.
Just, make sure that you're talking directly into that microphone there, good microphone etiquette and all that jazz. But yeah, and I mean, I'm very appreciative that we get to record in person, because I get to spend the day with you, Tazmin.
Lovely. It is lovely.
It is very lovely. Wholesome, even. Yeah. All those words. So, this week, we are talking about rejection. I know.
It's a toughie.
It is a toughie. But it happens, right? Like, in life, you're going to get rejected.
Yeah.
And so, because it's inevitable and something that you can't control, it's unavoidable. Especially if you are working on growing yourself and you're wanting to, try different things, or you want to challenge yourself, you are going to, at some point, deal with rejection. And rejection comes in personal life, in work life, in professional life. It's a thing that happens, isn't it? So it is inevitable, isn't it?
Absolutely. There's no two ways about it. I guess never getting rejected means you never try something new, go for a different role, whatever.
And it's not bad. And I think, obviously, I don't want to downplay this, because it's emotional, isn't it? So when you do get rejected, it is going to upset you, or it is going to have a reaction, because you're not a robot.
No, absolutely. And if we think about the things that we associate with rejection, not getting the job, losing a relationship, not getting the promotion, these are things that we've invested so much of ourselves in, and then to be told that that path is now closed for you, it hurts.
It does hurt. And in actual fact, I would argue, if you didn't feel upset, or if you didn't feel like these emotions, did it really matter that much to you in the first place? So yeah, like it is rubbish. Don't get me wrong, it is hard, but it is part and parcel, and it is going to happen. And what I wanted to do with this episode and this conversation is bring it to light, talk about it. And in part 2, I want to give our listeners some actionable things. So what you can do when you do get rejected, and the steps that you take. But I think a good place to start is I just want to reassure people that it does happen to everyone. And I think sometimes you can compare yourself to other people, especially social media. So on social media, people show their best life, don't they? They show when they have been accepted, and when good things are happening. People don't show the negative. People don't show the rejection. So I think sometimes it can feel in that moment, why am I being rejected when so-and-so is doing this and that and all of this wonderful stuff? You don't know what it's taken that person to get there. Do you know what I mean? Like, of course, they're going to have had rejection in their past. And I think it's a tricky one, because it's a horrible thing to talk about. And I don't think I was ever like, okay, Sarah, you're going to have rejection. This is what you need to do, X, Y, and Z, because you kind of want to protect people, don't you? And be like, do you know what? You're not going to be rejected. You're going to be fine. You should do this. But I think it is worth the conversation.
Can I say something that might blow this episode sideways slightly?
Oh, gosh. I'm nervous, Tazmin.
When I was made redundant at Argos, and you go through a process, right, where you can apply for lots of internal jobs because it was part of a restructure. And I did. I applied for lots of internal jobs and didn't get them, and then, moved into this career. I remember going for lunch with the group, and in that group was the manager who had rejected me for one of those roles. And I remember saying to him, thank you for not giving me the job, because then I would have been doing what you guys are doing, and I am so much better off right now. So sometimes those rejections are leading you down a certain path. So that's one. I don't think I completely derailed the episode, have I?
You've not completely derailed, but I'm just like, obviously, like, you have to, and we'll get more into this in part 2 about how you deal with rejection, because we'll talk about maybe it is the universe, or you're being pushed in a certain way. And we'll talk more in detail in part 2. So you haven't derailed at all. You've done a nice little teasing there.
Okay.
But I suppose some of the times where you might get rejected, so maybe you've gone for a promotion in your current role, and you've worked blooming hard, and you get told no. A job interview, you've gone after this job that's ticked all your boxes, and you're really wanting to do it, and unfortunately you get told you're not right, we've gone with someone else. Other ways that you deal with rejection is relationships with people. Personal relationships. You might feel rejection in maybe you drift apart from someone, or maybe you're not as close to someone anymore, or even in a romantic setting, maybe someone doesn't want to be with you anymore. That is rejection. Other things, maybe you've decided that you want to start a podcast with someone, and you've got all these wonderful ideas, and you've put this plan and process together, and you go pitch it to the person that you want to do the podcast with, and they say no. Maybe you want to get into speaking, You've decided, okay, Brighton SEO, this time I'm going to do it. Brighton SEO, they get flooded with applications and not everyone gets accepted. So that's another part of rejection. Putting yourself forward to be on someone's podcast, maybe you not quite the right fit, or maybe the podcast is full. Maybe they're speaking slots, because there's a lot of podcasters who batch record content. So even though you're reaching out to them in like August or September, maybe they're in a place where they've like dealt with all their content and they've got everything recorded, or there's a plan. So, I mean, is there any other places that you feel rejection or where that would happen?
It's a slight tangent, I guess. If you're a freelancer and pitching for business and not getting that business, that can not only feel horrible, but also it impacts your livelihood.
Yeah, definitely. Building on that as well, again, if you're freelance, but if you're agency side, maybe a client doesn't want to work with you anymore.
Yeah.
That happens.
Well, clients' budgets change, so it probably has nothing to do with you personally. They just don't have the money for that service.
Or maybe they've had a change in like managing or stakeholder, or maybe they've decided, you know what, we're not outsourcing anymore, we're bringing everything in-house, sort of thing. So there's a lot of things that you can't control, but you end up getting rejected. And I suppose, there's lots of different situations that rejection is going to happen. Maybe you want to write a book and you've put some pages together. I don't know the process of getting a book published, so I don't know why I'm going with this example. But maybe you're going to a book publisher with this idea, and you've got some pages, or you've got a concept, and you started, and you've gone to them, and they've said no. But I suppose this happens, and I suppose the reason why I'm giving you all of these, or why we're giving these examples, is just to show you, do you know what? Rejection happens. Rejection is showing you that you are moving, you are doing something, you are putting yourself out of your comfort zone. And there's so many inspirational, so if you look at entrepreneurs or people that you look up to, if you look at their backstory and like all the times that they've been rejected, or something's not happened, or something like that, and it's fueled them to want to do it more. So I think we're at a good place to pause, because I think part 2 is going to be bigger because we've got a lot to cover and a lot to talk about. But before we do break, is there anything else that you want to say?
Well, I can give a real life example of my own rejections that are happening. I reach out to organizations and say, look, there is a need for more training and coaching on self-development, on stress management, on confidence building, and I can absolutely do it, and people actually like it when I do it. And the number of no's I've had, but I know that this is just part of my story, because I'm going to one day say, I had 175,000 no's, but then somebody actually said, yeah, go for it, Tazmin, and it all worked out beautifully.
There you go. Right, so let's take that short break, let people digest this information, get people prepared. But when you come back for part 2, we'll talk about how you can deal with rejection. Introducing Clear Narrative Media, a purpose-led media marketing agency that transforms how founders, creatives, and organizations share their stories online. Dedicated to assisting you with all your marketing, content, and strategy needs. Their services include photography, consultancy, and social media management. Clear Narrative Media is here to transport your visions to life. They are on a mission to help you to create awareness, build visibility, and enhance your business and professional growth overall. For more information, head over to their website at cnmediaa.com or follow the link in the show notes. Hi, Sarah here. Just quickly reminding you of the ways that you can support the podcast. So if you enjoy what me and Tazmin are doing, there are a couple of ways that you can support us. We are set up on Buy Me a Coffee. That means that you can give us a one-off donation. If you fancy doing that, there's a link in the show notes and we would be very, very appreciative of that. You can also sign up to our newsletter. So if you want to keep up to date with the latest, with what's going on, episodes, events, anything and everything that me, Tazmin and the podcast are up to, you can do that by signing up to our newsletter and you can unsubscribe at any time. Okay, Tazmin. So we've spoken about all the ways that you can get rejected, feel rejection. And you were very open as well and very vulnerable. So thank you.
Shall I give you part 2 of that vulnerable moment?
I mean, where's my popcorn?
Well, I said that after all of the no's, there is a yes, inevitably. Well, the yes has happened, but I just can't share with whom yet.
Watch this space.
Exactly.
It's very exciting, Tazmin. Very, very exciting. So yes, let's spend part 2 of this episode talking about how to deal with rejection. So part 1, we gave examples and we said, okay, it's inevitable, unavoidable situation. So let's talk about ways that you can deal with rejection. So first things first, give yourself time to process what has happened. Yeah. Like obviously rejection's going to cut. It's going to hurt you. It's going to make you upset. So make sure that you process that feeling. And you're a fan of journaling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get some thoughts down on paper. Get inquisitive and be like, okay, why am I so upset? Why does this rejection hurt? And you might be like, well, Sarah, it's rejection. Like, of course it's going to hurt. But actually ask yourself why is that hurt so much? Like what? And try to find out more about yourself and what that meant to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Good one.
So yeah, have time to process, have time to think about it. Once you've done that, ask for feedback. Always a fan of feedback. So depending on who's rejected you, and usually when you go for a job interview, let's say, they give you reasons why, don't they? I mean, I have heard some horror stories where people are just left in the lurch, not really told. But always ask for feedback, because you might be catastrophizing and being like, these are all the reasons and it's so bad. How do you know? How do you know what the reason is? And you never know, the answer might help with that rejection. So for example, with Brighton SEO, maybe it was just the case of you pitched at the wrong time. And because I think how Brighton SEO works, because they always say, don't they, that to be accepted, your best time to pitch is directly after a conference, because they're starting planning, they're starting putting stuff together. So it might have just been a timing thing. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe they've got all their slots sorted and because you were later on, they couldn't then fit you in, sort of thing. So, but it could be any reason, but always ask for feedback. And in actual fact, asking for feedback makes you look good as well, doesn't it? And having that feedback, you can then make a plan, can't you? So another suggestion is, okay, you've sat with your feelings, got to the bottom of why you're feeling the way you are. Next up, you've asked for your feedback. Now have a little plan. So be like, okay, I got rejected this time. Let's make a plan. Let's make a plan and be like, okay, how do I not get rejected next time? So maybe it's a timing issue. maybe you're missing something. Maybe there's something that you need to work on. Maybe you need some more experience. Yeah. Don't just base this on your own feedback. Depending on the thing that you're going for, do some research and look into, okay, how can I better my chances? Have conversations with people as well. So have a conversation with someone who was picked to speak at Brighton SEO, for example, and find out how they pitched, what they did. Ask for help. Yeah. So once you've put your plan together, maybe there's someone that you can identify in the industry that you could ask for their help and just be like, and I suppose this is asking for a mentor, isn't it, really, or asking for a coach. So there's lots of programs out there where you can get support and help. But maybe you can go with them with this plan of being like, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm thinking. Can I have your feedback, please? And work together. Is there anything that you want to, I mean, I could list some more, but I just want to see where you're at so far.
Okay, so now I'm not a bullshit person, am I? But I think what I'm going to say might sound a bit like that. Maybe it's not a you problem, maybe it's a them problem. Yes. So, for example, a while ago, I was exploring the opportunities to work as a coach within a university setup. And I didn't get that role. And the reason was because I didn't understand the intricacies of the process. And I get that. There's absolutely no way you can learn that unless you've got the job. And I was thinking, okay, I don't know that thing, but I also didn't know about podcasting not so long ago. There are lots of things that I have learnt how to do very successfully, and I could have learnt that as well. It's not like I couldn't have done, but what they were getting was somebody who had lots of other experience that would have been really beneficial in that role. And after being rejected, getting the feedback, I just turned around and thought to myself, well, they lost out. So apologies if this sounds a little bit OTT, but that's my thought as you were saying what you were saying.
I mean, it's not OTT at all. It's a very good point. Like, yeah, I think, and that's a good mindset to go into this, because maybe they didn't see how great you are. Maybe they didn't see like everything that you could bring to the table. And yeah, do you know what? It's on them.
Yeah, and I think also in that, if you were applying for a job in a large corporation or an educational setting, they have very strict ways in which they grade somebody who comes to them. And in there might not be a box that says any extra points for the fact that she might have been a podcaster talking about personal development, because they are very regimented. And I think that's one of the great things and downfalls of the whole recruitment process in large organizations.
Yeah, this is true. And I suppose the question is, how much does that job, or how much does that mean to you? Because if you found out, okay, they haven't hired me because of X, Y, and Z, maybe there's something that you're lacking, maybe something that you didn't have. Like, is it that important to you to work on that and get that thing that they said no to you for?
Yeah. Well, first of all, that thing I would never be able to get unless I got that job, because you can't go and take a course on it or read a book on it or shadow anybody. But it's a question then to myself of, well, actually, I ended up thinking, okay, thank you for rejecting me, because something better is out there for me.
Definitely. And I think you alluded to this earlier of, so when you are sitting and reflecting and you're putting a plan together, maybe you can be inquisitive and be like, maybe this has happened because it's not right for me, and actually I'm being pushed into doing something else. And yeah, I think I think resilience is an important thing. It's a tricky thing, isn't it? Because it's hard to have resilience, but I think, you're smiling at me.
Do you remember a while ago we did a whole podcast on resilience, and somebody had said to me, resilience is like an elastic band. The more you pull it, the less give it has, the less strength it has. And I said to them, well, it depends what you're feeding it. Because if you're feeding it words like, oh, you're so rubbish, you never get your job, words like that, it's going to be like an elastic band. But it could be more like a muscle. If you feed it good nutrients, like it's okay, pick yourself up, have another go, you're just one step closer to getting the thing that you want. Maybe there's something to learn, and feed it words of encouragement. It's then more like a muscle. So mindset is critical with resilience, and the way you speak to yourself is critical with resilience, using the previous example. Another example is, I'm a big fan of Ali Abdaal, who says the first 25 YouTube videos you'll create will probably not be very good, so get to the 26. And then I have a very good friend called Hazel, who is social media agency owner of Lyft. I believe it's Lyft Social. And she used to say to me, Tazmin, your aim is to get 20 no's today. So go off and do whatever pitching you want, but your aim is to get 20 no's. And usually you don't get to 20 no's before you get a yes. And when you can start reframing it like that, then it is easier to be resilient.
Yeah. And it's definitely, because it's tricky just to be like, you need to be more resilient, because that takes time, doesn't it? Especially if it's like a muscle, you need to train it and things. But I think as well, can you take the personal out of it? Like, because I think it's hard not to think, it's because of me. Like, this is personally because of me. I've been said no, or I've been rejected because it's me. Most of the time it's not. If it is, then you could go back to that mindset of, well, it's their loss. And actually, this was in your episode recording with Alice, where she was saying that sometimes you have to be yourself, and you have to put yourself out there, and the people who reject you and the people who don't like you aren't your tribe, they're not your people. And in actual fact, putting yourself out there, getting those no's, every time you get a no, you'll get a yes at some point, but every time you get a no, you are working towards finding your people, finding what you should be doing, I suppose.
Yeah, because if you think about the example of job seeking, you're only going to go for the interview that you really want. How many jobs have you rejected in the process of applying for the one that you've actually wanted? Because you can't apply for all of them. You can't have all of them. You are going through your own filtering process in order to get to that job, and maybe that job isn't the right one for you. We grew up with this training. I don't know if it's cultural or spiritual or whatever, but we were told if somebody has done something bad to you, give them 40 excuses. And I remember growing up thinking, well, they were really mean, and now I have to give them 40 excuses, like, or maybe they were tired, or maybe they've had a bad day, or maybe they've misunderstood, and maybe this and maybe that. And I used to resent doing that process. And you never get to 40, because by that time you're tired and you're bored of it. But now I realize that actually that's for me. Giving them those excuses was to help me and my own state of being, because it got me to the point of thinking it's not me that they're rejecting, the problem is theirs. Yes, definitely. I've never heard of that before. Like, why 40? I don't know. I certainly didn't ask the question, but now I get it. And it's also when people say, oh, forgive that person. It's not about okaying their behavior. The reason you're forgiving is that you stop thinking about it, because when you're thinking about it, that's when you're becoming de-energized. But if you let it go, you then get back to being yourself. So it's a self-protection thing as well.
Yes, definitely. Very interesting. And yeah, like, you have to do stuff that's right for you, don't you? And yeah, like, if while you're doing this process, if it does help you and it does help with that rejection, then go for it. I suppose it's about finding what helps you in that situation, doesn't it?
Yeah. And ask yourself, okay, I've applied 100 times for this type of role and I'm being rejected for it. Is there something I need to learn here? Do I really want that job? Do I really want to be doing something different? Do I need to find other people? Which is what you alluded to. Is it that that particular set of people are not going to appreciate my skill set, whereas another set of people will?
That's it, isn't it? And it's hard and a bit horrible, but you're not going to find that until you get people rejecting you, isn't it? And having that process and stuff. And yeah, wow, okay. I mean, we are at time, and that seemed to fly by. But I suppose I've got a main takeaway, and it'd be good to hear your thoughts and stuff. But my main takeaway would be, don't let rejection, the fear of rejection, stop you from going after something, pushing yourself, getting yourself out of that comfort zone. Don't let that fear of rejection stop you. Be prepared for that rejection. Yeah? Be prepared for the best case scenario and the worst case scenario. And you've just got to be vulnerable, put yourself out there, and you will get no's, but you will get yeses, and you will step closer to doing your thing, what you should be doing, sort of thing.
Yeah. What's
your main takeaway?
When we apply for a job or are in a relationship or pitch for business or whatever, we want the other group of people to accept us, to validate our worth, to, say yes to us. In the process of then going through the rejection, be really mindful of how you're speaking to yourself, because why don't you also then give yourself that self-validation, that self-worth, that yes to yourself? So don't lose yourself in the process of all of that. Speak to yourself well, treat yourself well, look after yourself.
Yeah, like if, I suppose the question to ask there, like if someone... Oh, and there's another... Sorry, can I squeeze in one more?
Sure.
Your cheerleader.
Yeah.
Get your cheerleader.
Absolutely.
So, when you're dealing with rejection, get your cheerleader to come and boost you, or like tell you the stuff that you need to know. Like you need to be able to do that. Because anything that, and get into the mindset that if a friend, loved one, or a family member came to you with that they've been rejected, you wouldn't be horrible, would you? You wouldn't be like, oh, well, of course they rejected you. You're this and that, and of course they didn't want you. So do yourself the same courtesy. Be kind to your own self and be like, do you know what? Like that rejection doesn't define me. That rejection isn't my be all or end all. I've got lots more opportunities. I've got lots more things to do. I can work on myself. Whatever that reason is, use it as an opportunity to either perfect or work on something that you're missing, or take the opportunity to be like, do you know what? They're just not for me. They're not my people. They're not my tribe.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Right. Shall we, before we wrap up, remind people of what they can do to support us? And would you like to do that?
So absolutely, I will do that. You put me on the spot. Usually it's Sarah who does this bit. So there are various ways that you can support Sarah and myself. if you're enjoying the content, then please do. One of the ways is to give us a one-off donation via the Buy Me a Coffee link. And the other way is to follow us on socials. So we're on LinkedIn now, Sarah, and Instagram.
Yeah. We're on basically all the socials,
all
really.
The socials.
If you just, whatever social media platform you're on, if you just search SEO Mindset Podcast, we're there, basically. So, reach out to us, chat to us, give us some love. We like a little bit of love, don't we? So, we'll make sure. But as ever, everything is in the show notes.
Yes.
Have we said about Buy Me a Coffee?
Yes, we said Buy Me a Coffee.
We said Buy Me a Coffee. So, basically just get in those show notes.
Yes.
Find whatever links you need in there. Don't... next time you get rejected, hopefully this podcast episode has helped you better deal with that situation. Right. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Take care of yourself, and until next time. Looking to create awareness, build visibility, and enhance growth for your business, organisation, or yourself? Introducing Clear Narrative Media, a purpose-led media and marketing agency that transforms how founders, creatives, and organisations share their stories online. Dedicated to assisting you with all your marketing, content, and strategy needs. You can find them on all social media platforms and online at cnmediaa.com or follow the link in the show notes.